Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the September 13th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order at 7:03 PM, and if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. A reading of meeting notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted with the Township of Verona and the Verona Education Association. Posting of this meeting, setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public via the Board of Education website. Mr. Cruz, can you please call attendance?
Sure. Mr. Walker? For the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Ms. Rosella?
Here.
Mrs. Farrar?
Here.
Mrs. Prisco?
Here.
Mrs. Freshy?
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, presentations, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Diane DiGiuseppe. She's going to do her superintendent report as well as the SSDS report.
Good evening. Short report. I think I owe you a short report after last board meeting that I rambled on. Just that it's really, we had great opening. We're looking at back to school nights over the next 2 weeks of all of our schools, starting with tonight, actually, at HBW, tomorrow night, FM Brown. And then next week, we have the other elementaries, and then the following week, the high school. Really a fairly smooth opening. Kids are excited to be back. We're excited to have them back. We talked about professional development last week. We are planning to have a professional development, full day professional development on September 22nd. That is coming together pretty quickly. We are working with building principals and the curriculum department to unroll our day for staff. And we have a packed day for staff, teaching staff, other certificated staff, paraprofessionals, administrative assistants. Everybody's getting some form or another of relevant job embedded professional development. So we're very happy and proud of being able to provide that to our staff who really deserve our taking the time to really look at what we provide for them. So in looking at the student safety data system report, this is something that is required that superintendents report to boards. I reported earlier in the year our reporting period one. Reporting period one goes from July 1st to December 31st, and then reporting period two goes from January 1st through June 30th. So we already reported on the first half of the year, and rather than do reporting period two and then the whole end of the year, the first column RP2 is anything that was reported after January 1st, and then the total is there in the gray column. So in looking at it, we had at the high school 21 HIB investigations. So the numbers are not going to add up to 38 because the 21 indicates the 8 alleged and 13 confirmed HIBs at the high school. And then we had some substance issues and unfortunately a couple of physical altercations, 1 trespass, and then 10 other what's called other incidents leading to removal or leading to suspension. And if you look down at the bottom, there's the other category at the high school were a combination of inappropriate use of social media or text messages, cutting lunch or Saturday detentions, or the use of vulgar language. So at HBW, we had 24 total incidents that had to be reported to the student safety data system. We did 8 investigations for harassment, intimidation, or bullying. 6 of them were alleged, in other words, not confirmed, and 2 of them were confirmed. We had no physical altercations in reporting period 2, 1 simple threat, and then 15 other incidents leading to removal, which at HBW consisted of physical conflict. So that's different than fight. That means someone was physical with someone else, but it wasn't a back and forth physical contact with both people, both students. Inappropriate use of social media or text messages, cutting lunch detention or Saturday detention, insubordination, defiance, and disrespect towards students or staff. 1 incident of vandalism, and the misuse of physical education equipment. I believe that was throwing a ball at someone's face. So that was at HBW, and then Brookdale had one HIB investigation that was confirmed. FNB had 3 investigations. 2 were alleged or not confirmed. 1 was confirmed. Forest didn't have any incidents this year at all, and then Lanning had 1 HIB that was alleged, not confirmed, and then the new category that we're required to report in SSDS and to the board is if we had any restraints or seclusions of students. We had 1 restraint of a student at FN Brown and 2 at Lanning. Both were elopements with students that were looking to escape the building and had to be restrained for their own safety. We did train, if you recall, we did train all of our administrators earlier in the summer on handle with care, which is a type of restraint. I'm sorry, CPI, which is similar to handle with care, on how to effectively first de-escalate a situation so that you don't have to restrain a student, but if you have to restrain a student, how to do it safely and appropriately. So that is the SSDS report in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. No. Okay. So short report tonight, but yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to our student representative report, Risha Hatto.
Alright, so school year started back up, so I got a little more this time. College visits have started to be at BHS have started as early as September 11th. Students can register to attend sessions with representatives from public, private, and community colleges. Registration's done online through the Naviance portal, but like a lot of the times they're located in the front office, so you can like swing by if you're walking there. But registration is of course required. So yeah, from what I've seen, I haven't checked out any numbers on that yet. There has been student interest in registration. It varies from college to college, but yeah. 9th and 10th graders sat for NAP testing on September 12th. Student council elections for all positions, including this one, will be coming up on September 21st. And moving into competition season for the marching band as well as spring sports. So band competitions will start September 23rd. And the high school's annual club fair will be September 26th, an opportunity for students, especially incoming freshmen, to get involved, to opportunity to sort of get more in touch with the school. And that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Are you running? Do you have to run for this position again?
Yeah, so the term for student liaison is 1 year. So according to the state legislation, I run 1 year elected through the student body. Technically, the legislation says it's up to the school to choose how the position's chosen, but at BHS, it's a general student election, same as school president.
And are you on that ballot again?
I will be on the ballot again.
Good.
Very much. Now we're going to open up the floor to public comments on agenda action items only. If you have anything you would like to say about anything that's being voted on, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we are going to move on to discussion items. I just want to, under discussion items, just mention again that this Saturday, we are having our board retreat at 10 a.m. for all our board members and superintendent and Mr. Cruz and our student representative. So that'll be here at 10 for us. So that I'm looking forward to that as well. And does anyone have any discussion items that they would like to discuss or mention?
I just wanted to mention, because I forgot to mention it last time, if anyone is interested in putting forth a resolution for New Jersey School Board's Delegate Assembly, the date for those, I believe they're due September 27th, but I can get you the exact date, but I want to say that's the one that sticks in my head. So if there's anyone on the board who wishes to propose a resolution that we could then bring to the delegates, that would be the date to do it. And the next delegate assembly would be December.
You. Anything else? Okay, moving on. Mhm.
Should have done this in my report, but it didn't seem report worthy, but I should mention I revised the statistical report for the board. I will send you out the template that I'm giving to the principals. Just all the information that I have to report to the board, just not as complicated as a system. So I'll email you that the principals received it today, and we decided we would do it on this last meeting of the month instead of twice a month, because giving the board enrollment twice a month doesn't seem, yeah. So we'll do it in the last meeting of the month. That's when you'll get the statistical report, and we'll put it out to the public.
You. Okay, we're going to move on to our resolutions. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll for resolution A, routine matters, A1 through A3.
Sure. For the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Frizella?
We need a motion. I'll
Oh,
motion them.
my motion, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, thank you. I sounded like I forgot something.
The only quick question I have, and it's shame on me, I didn't, the calendar, the district calendar, what got revised? What got changed? I couldn't tell what the difference was.
It's the report card release date at the end of the marking, not report, the end of the marking period. Because in the initial calendar, it was the day after the President's Weekend. So the teachers are not here for 3 days, 5 days after the Saturday and Sunday. And when they come back, they'll have to submit grades. They don't have enough time to finish up and complete, et cetera. So
Okay.
we moved that, and then we just open it. Yeah, that's
With days off.
no, not at all. No.
Because I couldn't tell what was different, so, yeah, as long as it's.
Yes.
I'm
The
okay.
report card date is November 16th. I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, I know what it was. The HPW conferences, unfortunately, were overnight. That one of the nights, the night HPW teacher conference was on the first night of Jewish holiday.
I actually do have something, just speaking of the
Fine.
calendar. Okay. When do we usually approve the following? Like the
We-
24, right now we're 23, it's 24, 25. When does that typically?
We usually do it by January, but we could do it
Earlier.
earlier if you want.
One thing that I don't remember if I don't think I've said this publicly. You know how we put in our calendar, we will, let me just get my head straight here. We'll kind of list out days that we're going to take back if we need for snow days. The suggestion is possibly if we can consider also saying what days we're going to give back. Oh, it's on there? Oh, we did this. I did say it. Okay. I'm like, did I say that? Okay, I did. Sorry.
Yeah, There's so much information.
Had a
on this
long
calendar.
week.
It's at the, like the very bottom. It says
I-
70, yeah.
75.
If emergency posting days are not used by March 28th, they'll be applied in the following order: June 4th, May 24th, May 28th.
Okay, thank you.
The first week back. We're a little funny.
Yeah, I actually have one question too. I just looking at it. I'm assuming we might have to revise our board meeting dates again because on the 24th of October is New Jersey School Boards. So we're going to have to add a different day. We're going to have to figure out when we're going to do the October 24th meeting. Right? I think the following Tuesday is Halloween. Not that it matters. but- Yeah,
Yeah, the following Tuesday. So it would normally be the 24th. We could go down to one meeting that month and make it on the 17th. Rather than doing 10th and the 17th, just combine them.
I'm just a little about picking a meeting because things tend to happen. And if something happens and we only have one meeting in a month, then we're doing an emergency meeting and it becomes a scramble.
do we do the 30th,
We could do Monday the
30th,
30th.
October 30th?
Sure.
Does that work? Thank you.
Monday.
And we have to maybe take a little bit of a deeper look when we do next year's calendar.
Yeah.
That day is not gonna work for me. If we have one off, but we're okay, I would have to, you know, say that I'm okay with.
Okay.
Monday meeting, it's not good. It would be Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do either Wednesday or Thursday the next week, right? The first or second.
The Thursday would be fine for me. And again, it's.
So let's find out from Mr. Waka.
Right.
Because if he can't be there on one of those days, we don't have quorum anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, for some reason, I think he might have Monday meetings.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
For the record, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to personnel, I need a motion, please, to approve personnel resolutions B1.1. Hold on, there's a bunch. To B8. B1 to B8 on resolution. Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by
Me, Denise.
Mrs. Frizella. Any discussion?
I just have kind of a weird question. What is summer locker maintenance?
It's locker clean out and locker, if they need painting and sprucing up, the locks cut off if kids left locks on. And our apologies for that. That was provided to Mrs. Lubersky before she left for the year and it never made it onto agenda. So I know it's in retrospect, but Mr. Plaza did the work. So yeah, that is what it is. It's just like part of the summer maintenance.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to our education. I need a motion, please, to approve resolution C1 through C6 under education. Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by
I'll second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussion?
Just want to say I'm glad to see the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's material put up on there, especially considering current mental health. Glad to see that that's already in the curriculum, but I'm glad to see that material.
Yes.
Yeah, and we are actually reviewing their materials for our younger kids, for the middle school age kids. They do a different program. We've not seen it, so we're not going to commit to it. But we have seen this presentation and it's, I agree, it's something that we need to do.
Yeah, there's going to be a stand At tomorrow night's football game, I think against Caldwell, there's going to be American Suicide Prevention stands. It's usually there at that home game every year. And Mrs. Citrano, who was very instrumental in getting the mental health program developed in Verona, asked me to man that table with her tomorrow night. So we'll have board representation for that at the football game tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Thank
It is
you.
Suicide Prevention Month,
Yes.
September.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Sure. Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Frizell,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. Moving on to resolutions for athletics co-curricular. I need a motion to approve resolution D1.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Rosella. Any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Sure. Walker's absent. Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
we have no resolutions for facilities, so moving on to resolutions F for finance, I need a motion to approve resolutions F1 to F2.
So
So
moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Ferrara. Any discussions? None. Mr. Cruz?
Once again, Mr. Walker is absent. Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. There's no resolutions for governance and policy. So we are going to move on to public comments on any item. If anyone would like to come to the podium, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we are going to adjourn tonight's meeting. Our next meeting, what happened? Oh, I thought, I believe our next meeting is what, the 26th?
26th, with
All
a
right.
confidential set for
Con-
residency issue.
A confidential session beginning at 6 PM on September 26th. I need a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by
I'll second it.
Mrs. Rosella. It is
All in favor?
7:26.
Need all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
7:26. We are adjourning the meeting. Thank you. Have a great night.